you could be fucking phenomenal and I can also still look and say, but you're not for me.
Which is actually really hard to say.
You can't tell me that every single person that you've dated, all of them would have been the one for you. We're internalizing and personalizing a lot of things.
What is the importance of that personal healing step before you hit into a new relationship?
Oh, baby. We think dating's hard? Try the relationship, right? Like, we think dating's the hard part. That's the fun part. Because what happens in a relationship, you're triggered nonstop. This was a doctor who said it, and I was like, oh, God, get bent. She said, just don't date people that trigger you. Like, that's it. Just don't. And it's like...
Everyone triggers me.
Everything in life will trigger you.
Sabrina Zohar is a dynamic entrepreneur and a dating coach with a clear, no-nonsense approach to relationship advice. In 2016, when she quit smoking a pack a day, 3 medications for anxiety and depression, changed her diet, and worked out for the first time in 9 years, wow, her life truly changed. Are you looking to transform your self-worth and personal growth to create a toxic-free relationship? Well, this one's for you. Welcome to Toxic-Free with KB, Sabrina Zohar. Welcome to Toxic-Free with KB, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of what it means to live a toxic-free life. I'm your host, KB. I'm a toxic-free lifestyle advisor and a diehard advocate for clean living. I'm here to guide you through the journey towards reclaiming your health and vitality. From the products we use, the foods we eat, and the relationships we share, we'll explore practical tips and strategies to create a life of balance. It's time to start living your best life. We're all in this together. Sabrina, so I was telling you before the show that I'm from Santa Barbara. I met my husband during COVID. So we were just talking about how we meet our honeys. When we started dating, first off, welcome to the show.
Hi.
I'm like, hi, I know. We're like best friends already. I'm like, okay.
Oh, just wait till after when we swap numbers. I'm like, it's just going to be voice note galore.
It's going to be so fun. But anyways, what I was saying is in the early stages of our dating, when we were getting to know each other, and COVID was such a, I hate to say, a beautiful time to get to know someone because you were so honest, you were so raw in the moment that, that rawness almost created instant trust, even though my husband says trust takes time. But something I truly want to know, and my stepchildren were like, well, they don't ask me this question, but I know they're thinking about this when they start to date someone. Sex or no sex on the first date? Right?
The age-old question. Okay. I will say this.
Here we are.
My partner and I hooked up on the first date. So like I am somebody that is, I don't have rules. I don't believe in the like, you have to do this, you don't have to do this. What I think is it's also trusting ourselves, right? Like when I met my partner, for me, I personally entered it being like, I just lost my dog, like my best friend. He was my everything. My business wasn't doing very, like my other business, I was just really struggling with it. I was struggling with my mental health. And when I met him, I was off of ending it with a guy that like just wasn't able to give me my needs. And I hadn't had sex in a while. And so when I met him, I was like, okay, we're having fun. Let me have some fun here. And if he calls me again, cool. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. And so by releasing just that control to the outcome of like, I'm making a choice as a woman with empowerment. I'm making a choice for myself. If this doesn't work out, like how many times you sleep with someone, you don't hear from them again. But at the end of the day, I made that choice, not because I wanted a specific response. And so I think when it comes to if you do this, if you don't, the only data that we have right now on relationships is that it takes 3 months for somebody, when they say the 3-month rule, right? The only data that shows is that people can't wear a mask for typically longer than 3 months. So giving someone 3 months of your time to really see if there's a relationship budding is more so to see, are they being consistent? Are they being somebody that is reliable? Are they showing up for me? Is this a mask? Are they full of shit? Is it gaslight, right? All of those variables. But there really isn't any concrete data to show, if you wait 10 dates, it's going to have a better reaction than if you wait only the first. What I would say is be honest with your communication, right? Like if you're going to make the choice, I'm very sex intimacy positive. And I learned that through my therapist, who is incredibly intimacy positive with me and never held judgment with me. And I want people to feel empowered by the decisions that they make and not feel like you're being shamed or put down because there's somebody on the internet that is antiquated telling you that no one's going to respect you. Because my partner from day one has always been into me, has never changed his intentions. And that's it. It comes down to what are their intentions, right? Because you could be the Queen of Sheba and make somebody wait 10 dates. But if they're not really ready for a relationship, what you're telling them is you have to wait this long in order to get what you want, right? And so I'm not a fan of people being like, I'm not going to sleep with you for 8 dates. It's like, don't give them a roadmap of what they need to do to get that outcome, because then that creates this like drive for, oh, I want the reward. Instead, what I would do is, one, sit with yourself. If you are saying on the first date, you're like, I want to get laid, I am a woman with needs or a man with needs, right? I'm a human with needs, and this feels good to me. I release control of the outcome. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Please go at it, have fun. But if you're someone that says, I get too attached, I get highly anxious, it's like, that's okay. Then protect your heart. Do what feels right for you, but also know that there isn't a guarantee either way. Just because you wait doesn't necessarily mean that that person's going to choose that to be in a relationship with you, because we also have to remember pheromones, right? There are different aspects that get released during intimate times. And if you're not aligned, it doesn't matter. Even if you've made that person wait 3 months, they could still say, hey, this doesn't work. So I would say to follow your gut and to really just trust what feels right. But I'm curious, like, I mean, you don't have to share too much, but like, did you and your partner wait? Was that a conversation that you had? Like, what are your experiences too?
Yeah, this is a really great conversation. And then I want to circle back to some, like another talking point on that aspect. So this is actually very interesting that we bring this up. Mom and Dad.
Don't listen to this part.
It's okay. Whatever. I'm like, woo. But I think before I met my now husband, my partner that I met during COVID times, I had been listening to podcasts, relationship podcasts, Sex with Emily, all the things. And I remember whoever it was saying, empower yourself as a woman, right? Be in control. And I had been so torn up in past relationships and thinking that my worth was, through my beauty or through what I gave or through my body or like they will run away, XYZ, that I wanted to be in charge. Toxic-Free with KB also wanted to make sure she knew what was going in her body. So I wanted to make sure whatever, contraceptions I was using, like that was my choice. Yep. I knew exactly what was happening. I was not on the pill. And I wanted to make sure I was ready because I waited, hello world, I waited a very long time to physically go through that act. Of course, I did other things, but I had been so traumatized by past abusive relationships that I had to fully trust the guy. And I told him, I'll never forget, I told him, as we were like making out one night. And I was like, I'm not going to do this until I'm completely 100% ready. And of course, sometimes you're like, oh my God, I just like blew up a bomb in a guy's face because they're like, what? But that is the moment right then and right there that you see the reaction and you see the person of who they really are. If they're like, what? No, then it's like, that would have like made me be like, oh my God, like who am I?
Yeah.
In that moment, right then and right there, like I knew he was always going to be there for me. He was always going to protect me. He was always going to support me. And he was always going to fill my actual needs in that moment. Certainly I had to like ring around the rosy and like trust that and believe that over and over again and test those limits. But nothing felt greater to me as a woman to feel empowered. And like I wasn't giving my power away. So yes, I did wait probably past the unmasking phase, past the 3-month phase to really go full throttle with that, which was awesome because it really grew our foundation and our friendship. And and now I'm married to him. We did go slow.
What I love about this is 2 totally different experiences, but still having a positive outcome, right? Like my partner just went ring shopping with my sister yesterday. Like it's happening, right? Like that moment's happening, but it's beautiful to show, hey, you can make a woman can make a decision out of an empowerment and a woman can make another decision out of empowerment. And really though, what it comes down to, their intentions. The person that, like you said, when my partner, if I told him to wait, he would be like, okay, right? Like, I don't think he would have freaked out like yours. If you had been intimate with your partner, you guys potentially would still be together because at the end of the day, it's about really empowering ourselves. What feels aligned? That's why I don't have rules. I am big on, you want to do it on first date? Great, but know what that means, right? Know that it might not work out and it might be, and if that doesn't work for you, more than okay. But the only thing I will say is don't do it for other people, right? Like don't do it for, I want you to prove it to me and you, no. I'm doing this because it's my comfort level. I can only control myself. And like you said, I don't feel comfortable. That's it, right? End of conversation. Got it, understood, noted. And you set a boundary and he respected that. And it's so beautiful to see that there really isn't a rule, right? Like you could have waited third date. It could be 15th date. It could be 100th date. But if you have a real connection and it's something genuine that you can trust, when you do it, is just going to be, it's just an add-on.
Yeah, you mentioned pheromones, which I feel like a lot of people don't understand what pheromones is, but holy shit, they are strong, right? Because, sometimes you're like, why are those two people together? But it's like, whoa, I don't know what that is. And people ask me, and it's that whole cliche of like, how do you know? It's like, you just know.
Body chemistry.
It's crazy.
It's wild, especially because I've been with people that I'm super stoked on them. And then when we sleep together, I'm like, oh no. It's just not in alignment. I'm like, this was not a dance I want to do again. Or like it's their smell or something about them. Like the way that there's a disconnect for me. And that's where I think we also need to hold space. Cause I hear this every day of, but we waited and everything was great, but like then they still ended it. And it's like, there is going to be a multitude of data points that somebody might say this isn't going to work out, to the same degree that it takes a lot of data points to put a ring on that finger, right? You hope that you have enough to go, no, this is a decision I'm making because this is the right decision for me.
Right.
And it's being okay with that like, yeah, you're going to have people that you think everything is okay and it doesn't work out. That window of tolerance is what we're trying to expand, right? There's no guarantee. My crystal ball is in the shop. So sorry to break everyone's heart. I can't tell you that this is going to work out with certainty. But what I can say is that if you trust yourself that no matter what, you'll be okay. That's all I care about.
Yeah. I think also circling back about, sex or no sex on the first date. But my follow-up is, do you believe there is a correlation between the length of time in which you wait to have sex to the longevity and the health of the relationship? I mean, you kind of talked on that, but
there's just no data to back it up, right? We can make hypotheses, but I've spoken to over 50 different couples. I wrote a list down and I asked all of them, when did they sleep together? And almost all of them were under three dates. Okay, cool. I could ask another 50 and it would be over 3 dates. Really what it comes down to is it's intentionality and what are you compatible? Do you have, because intimacy, when you sleep with someone or not, if just that sole action is going to determine the longevity of your relationship, we have a huge problem. Because what will make a successful relationship is communication, honesty, transparency, vulnerability, right? Having these tough conversations like you did with your partner, not being scared to say, I'm not going to do this right now. I don't feel ready. And him saying, I respect that, no problem. Yeah. That is the longevity you'll have in a relationship versus I'm self-abandoning, I'm not going to say anything, I'm playing a game, I'm being coy. Then we wonder, it's like when you're going to play a game, you can't be shocked when you get players. So it's really more about, because like I've seen multiple different studies that, longer relationships as they waited. Longer relationships because they didn't. I think what it's about is what are the depths of the conversation? What are you talking about? Right? Because I would imagine though you didn't have that aspect of intimacy, there were other ways you could be intimate with this person. Vice versa to me. If all I had was just that level of intimacy, it would never have worked beyond that because we need more than just a physical chemistry connection. We need so much more on compatibility.
Compatibility. And how do you even judge compatibility? I'm sure we'll go into that further on down as we talk, but you're like, are we compatible? A lot of people judge people by looks on the other side, but sometimes I've gone on dates with people, I'm not attracted to them fully physically, but then you start to become attracted to them. You're like, I love your brain.
Exactly. Ooh. Especially banter. You're like, ooh, turn me on. For true compatibility, right? If we're just going to talk, do your morals, ethos, ethics align, right? Do you have shared values and goals, right? So let's say you met your partner. If you were like, I don't want to date anyone with kids. Okay, then you're not compatible because you can't get rid of those 3. Right? That's not going to change unless you were like, hey, I'm not rigid on that. I'm flexible. I'm okay with it either way. True compatibility, we see this especially now, right? It's a very divisive time. If you don't agree with someone's politics, you're against them. And it's like, right? Are we compatible in the sense where we can agree to disagree? Can we have conversations that you might not see what I see and I might not see what you see, but we're able to respect each other and have that conversation? Is it a non-negotiable? Right? Is religion or politics or income, if those are all non-negotiables, well, then you're not going to be compatible with somebody who doesn't align with those. And we see it so often where people try to force a circle through a square peg, right? I don't know about you. I watch 90 Day Fiance all the time because I love my trash. And there are so many couples on there that have wildly differentiating, especially religious or cultural differences, right? Of like, I come from a very, we'll see all the time of like these American girls going over to like Middle Eastern countries with very antiquated or different ways of doing things. And these girls are just like, I just don't get it. Like, why don't you accept me for who I am? And it's like, because you're not compatible. This person doesn't see life in the way that you see life. They see it as a woman should do this and you see it as a woman should do this. That's true compatibility. And what people overlook is that, one, it actually takes a lot less to be compatible with someone than we think. I think it's like there's 30 something markers that it needs out of the like thousands. But two, where we really see true compatibility is like, how flexible are you, right? How emotionally intelligent are you? How emotionally aware are you? What are the depths of your conversations with this person? Because I'll tell you, if I were dating, like for instance, right now, if I were dating somebody that wasn't interested in mental health, but this is my career, well, then we're not going to be aligned and compatible because what the fuck are we going to talk about?
I have discovered this product that has literally changed my life. I use it time and time again when basically I feel as though I need a little more oomph in my self-care routine. I'm talking Medicine Mama's Vulva Care. Guys, did you know that vulvas are a vital part of women's health? Yeah, they have been ignored for far too long. And Vulva Care creates the space and time for women of all ages to get in touch with every part of their bodies. Medicine Mama has done just that. They've created a line of vulva skincare products that are hormone-free, OBGYN approved, clinically tested, and have over 12,000 5-star reviews. Probably more by now. I use the Vulva Balm every single day, and let me tell you, it is so nourishing and luscious and doesn't disrupt my vaginal pH. Holla frickin' Luya, ladies. Try Medicine Mama for yourself and let me know what you think. Get 15% off all menopause, pregnancy, postpartum, grooming, and even sexual wellness products. You know what I'm talking about. You can use my code TOXICFREE15 at checkout. Again, that code for 15% off all purchases, use code TOXICFREE15. Guys, if you want to learn more, tune into Toxic Free with KB, episode number 282 with the Medicine Mama herself, Dr. Claire Bertuccio. I have two amazing fur pups. I've got Poppy and I've got Harley Girl. I'm just pretty much a dog freak. When I found Botanical Bones, I had to contact the owner and I had to ask, oh my gosh, can I get some Treatos for my pups? Of course. She sent a whole bundle my way and my dogs are obsessed. So they have 3 specific formulas that I want to shout out, and they are based upon traditional Chinese medicine, which y'all know me, I'm a huge fan of that. So they've got Inner Glow, which has chaga, dandelion root, and ginger. They've got Flower Power, which is blueberries, red clover, and reishi. And they've also got Balance and Calm, which has ashwagandha, lemon balm, and hemp seeds. So, of course, you can pick your quote unquote pup's favorite type of flavor, but let me tell you, the dogs will love them all. And trust me, I have literally sniffed them myself, and I'm thinking about trying a handful or two. I want to give you guys 10% off these amazing treats that your dogs will love and then will thank you for time and time again. 10% off using my code HONEST10, because we could all use a little more honesty in our diet, and I think our pups could too. So head on over to botanicalbones.com and use code HONEST10 for 10% off. Let me know what y'all think. Oh yeah. I mean, my husband and I, if I could like throw us out there as an example, is he's a bull, I'm a china shop. Like there was actually a time where, and I kind of want to ask about this. I still kind of like throw this one at him. There was a time early in our relationship, and our budding part of our relationship moved very, very quickly.
It was COVID. That doesn't shock me.
Timeline. Yeah. But
it's a weird time.
Yeah, it was crazy. We were like having a great time, fun, doing friendly things. And then he kind of disappeared. And I was like, he's gone.
How long did he disappear for? I'm curious.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. That's a really great question. I would say it seemed like eons in my life, but maybe like a couple weeks.
Okay. But still, nonetheless.
Of course, it was me, like a single girl that was like, I don't have kids. I don't have like all these things. I'm just me and my dog. like working for myself. And, I'm like, what is he doing? But I think he actually admitted, he's like, I got a little nervous because I thought I was going to break you because you're so delicate, and I was like, what? I'm strong.
You're like, I am a China shop.
You're like, I am. And he lives very different lifestyle than I do. But we meet in the middle.
Right.
Like he's just so amazing. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful for that polarity at times too.
100%. I always say my partner's the frame and I'm the picture. Right.
Yeah.
Like, cause I'm this big, colorful, bold, and he's a little bit more like, I have my schedule and I like my routine. And like, he was in the tech world. So like we're total opposites as far as that, but the Venn diagram crosses over in the important shit.
Right.
Right. Like ethically, morally, like what do we want in a future? Right. Like I would imagine if your partner's like, I'm going to travel the world with my 3 kids and you're like, cool, I have a career here. We would have issues just on the longevity of the relationship.
Right.
But I think that to me is where a lot of people get caught up. And I get it. Like I'm sure you can relate. You and I both met our partners in our 30s. So we had lots of time prior to that to like have other relationships. I've met so many amazing people where I'm like, I think the moon, the stars, and the sun of you, but we're not right for each other long term. And that doesn't mean you're not an amazing person. I can hold 2 conflicting truths. You could be fucking phenomenal. And I can also still look and say, but you're not for me.
Yeah. Which is actually really hard to say, right? Yeah. Let's talk about that. I would hate to say turn someone down, but just say like, I'm sorry, I've had enough, like this is like not the right fit. Like, how do you say that?
I think it depends. A little bit of nuance is one, how long you've been dating, right? Like if it's only been a couple of dates and you're just like, hey, I think you're really fantastic, but this is not a connection I want to pursue. I truly wish you all the best, right? Like there's a very polite way to let somebody down. It's interesting because I did a video on instead of ghosting, say this, and it was similar to that. And it got like 12 million plays. So I was like, whoa, okay, needed. And it was 2 different experiences. You had the one side of like, yes, ghosting is so hurtful, please communicate. And then you have the other side of, I'd rather get ghosted than say this. This sounds like HR. Ew, I don't owe anybody an explanation. And that's my issue, is that we have to also remember that like people have different lived experiences and not everything is our lived experience. So when it comes to maybe letting somebody down, where it starts with is, okay, there's so many different levels. 1, what's happening in your nervous system? Are you regulated in this space right now to say, I'm making this choice out of empowerment, or am I ending it because, well, they didn't text me and I'm anxious and I didn't get my, right? Like we want to look at, have I really thought about this? And if you're like, yes, I think they're fantastic. And after just doing my own data, this isn't a match. Honesty is kindness, as Brene Brown says. I think it's so crucial to remember that when you're telling somebody, like you don't want to hurt someone, right? Like if I'm going out with you and I think you're fantastic, but like maybe this person has something, if I think it will help them, like, hey, this is really fantastic, but I did notice this. I just want to let you know that's why I don't feel comfortable pursuing things. If they have the bandwidth to receive like, oh, that might be really hurtful, but thank you for telling me. Like it's important that I know an outside perspective. Sure. But more often than not, if someone's like, oh, I don't want to date you, you're not my type. You might not be your type, but you're this person's type. Right? Your husband might he might not like brunettes. And that doesn't mean that you're better or worse. That just means that somebody has a proclivity to that.
Right.
So I always think a couple of things. Check in with your nervous system. Really come from a place of I statements, right? I feel this. Because it's hard to go and be like, bullshit, I don't believe you feel that. You're like, okay, you're going to discredit my feelings. And then thank you for making this decision easier. If you come from I statements of place of empowerment of I feel this, like, hey, I think you're fantastic. And I've had such an amazing time getting to know you, but I don't think that we have long-term compatibility. I see life a little bit differently than you do. And I truly wish you all the best. I'm so grateful for the time we got to spend, whatever, right? However you want to say it. How that other person responds, it's out of my control. I can only control how I show up. But I think the reason we see people not make those decisions of empowerment is because oftentimes we get really dysregulated in the dating world. And we, if I'm going to go into the neuroscience a little bit of it, because I love neuroscience.
Oh, me too.
The 2 main parts of the brain we'll discuss, the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. Right now, if we're in a safe ventral state, if we're looking at the nervous system through the polyvagal theory, a safe ventral state means I can give and receive, right? I'm not in threat. There's no danger, right? I'm safe. You say something to me that reminds me of my father, right? It triggers me. What's a trigger is a cue to your nervous system. You're in danger. You slam the door. You say no. You do something. To anyone else, they might be like, right? But I have this big reaction to it. So then what we have to really look at is like, okay, so what ends up happening in that time is we call it amygdala hijack. It's a terrible name, but we'll go with it. Prefrontal cortex shuts off because what's happening is your brain system is going, danger, shut down. And it can't Because if a tiger was here, you're not going to think logically. You're in survival mode. When we go back into that amygdala part of our brain, that stopped growing at 6. So you're holding on to fears and emotions and all of the stuff that happened at that earlier childhood wound. So when we see that, like, I never get picked, and it's like, well, if you're waiting for someone to choose you, what that means to me is like, are you choosing yourself? Right? If anyone's listening right now and going, oh no, that's me. I have a pattern. I never end it with people. I'm always heartbroken and devastated. It's like, so there's a pattern. You're not choosing yourself. You're attaching to people. You're not connecting to them. You can't tell me that every single person that you've dated, all of them would have been the one for you. Right? We're not really vetting them as accordingly then. And we're internalizing and personalizing a lot of things. And it's really a superpower, I think, if we can stop and hold those two conflicting truths of, I think you're fantastic, but after really thinking about what my needs and wants and desires are, I don't think this aligns with me. That is going to get you closer to what you want, not further away.
Yeah, I really love what you said about, I'm going to say, discovering your backstory. And I kind of want to jump into that, the neuroscience behind just people, ourselves, dating, whatever we want to like encircle it on. We were talking about narcissistic upbringings. I'm very curious about your childhood, right? You were talking about you have a narcissistic father. Is he still with us?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about your childhood, if you can,
please,
and how that kind of transformed your path into becoming a dating coach.
Absolutely. I was in fashion prior to this. Like, I thought, okay, that's what I want to do.
I was in fashion.
We were talking a little bit of that. We'll talk more about that. I was in like wholesale and doing like that kind of world. Prior to that, I was at acting school. So like, I wanted to try something, right? I wanted to be in the limelight. I want to be a performer. And so I grew up in a home where I had a narcissistic father, very textbook, right? Like that term, as I'm sure you know, gets so misused these days. Like someone that's self-centered is all of a sudden a narcissist. And it's like, no, he has severe narcissistic characteristics. And this was diagnosed by the therapist that he had to go see in order to get a divorce from my mom.
Can you share some of those for the audience?
Absolutely. To give an example, when I told my father how proud I was of the money I made this year, this is the highest amount I've ever made, his response was, I make that in my taxes. So everything is a competition, right? There's a grandiosity. I say, oh my God, blueberries are so expensive. Well, I get my blueberries for $1. And you're like, oh, okay. So it's about you, right? He's incredibly, like he has narcissistic rage. So what we see is narcissists, it's narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, right? It's the triangle, the triad. Is it called the triangle of darkness? I can't fucking remember, but
we'll call it the triangle of darkness.
Yeah, it's like, there's a terminology for it. And what those are 3 personalities that are high conflict personalities. And so that's what we also have to look at. When we say, oh, they're a narcissist, it's like, well, that would also imply that they're high conflict because that usually goes hand in hand when they get triggered, right? Even if they're covert, they're still high conflict. So what that looks like, my father, narcissistic rage, would be 1 second, like I'll never forget the memory of my sister doing math with him. And I was 4, right? 3 or 4. Like I was that young and my sister's 3.5 years older. And I'll never forget just watching in the room and my dad, every time she got a math problem wrong, he would slap her. And she was just crying hysterically. And he just kept hitting her and calling her fucking idiot and you're so stupid. And then I remember just sitting there and my mom walked by. My mother had disassociation. She was also a victim of his abuse as well. Not physically, but emotionally. We were the emotional and physical. He was incredibly abusive with us. And he would just hit us all the time. And then moments later, my love, come here, sit next to me. And that's how you build a trauma bond, right? You hurt me, but then you say you love me? You're doing this because you love me? Oh, okay, right? And it was the drop of a hat. If you said, no, I don't really want to do that today, that's it. He's going off the rails because narcissists are very ego-driven. So when they feel a threat to anything regarding their ego, that's it. It's going to be off the rails. And he was just textbook, right? Classic in that regard. And what did that say to me as a child? The messaging was, you're not safe. You have to perform to get his attention because you're going against all these other things. My father said one thing to me recently that kind of buttoned it all together. He looked at me and goes, what don't you get? You're a piece of me. You're embarrassing me. And I said, that's the problem. You think narcissistic parents think you're an extension of them. So you need to make them proud. And what we look at is in early childhood from 0 to 7, 0 to 10, depending on the therapist or school of thought, is called egocentric age. And essentially what that means is in that time as a child, you have to be a narcissist. And what that means is everything has to be about you, right? You have to be narcissistic, right? The world revolves around me. That's how a kid understands how to do things. So the messaging I received was, they're too much. No, everything I do, the minute you showed emotion, my father was out. He would hit you. He would leave for 2 weeks. He was just, everything was, you're too much. If you ask him now, why did he do that? His response is, you're bad kids, right? No accountability. Narcissists do not take accountability. It's everybody else, right? It's, oh, you're the problem and you made me hit you because you said something rude to me, right? They don't take accountability of their fucking part in things of like, no, you don't have control over your emotions. That's the problem. And so the messaging to me was high anxiety, right? You never knew when safety was going to happen. I never knew who to trust. So what did I do? I dated men like him, and that's called repetition compulsion. And that's a Freudian term. You will continue to date the parts of you that are unhealed, hoping that if I get this person, if I get this guy to tell me, look, you're right, you did hurt me, then I can make all those things from childhood go away. And so I dated narcissists. I dated avoidant men. I dated people that reaffirmed my core belief. See, there is something wrong with you. You are too much. Dad was right. And that is why I'm here. Because for years, I was going in therapy and doing all this work. I was the black sheep. I didn't talk to my dad for 2 years. My siblings were
While you were still living with him?
No, I moved out at 18. I moved out because my father, I went to college, and because my mother went on a date. They had been divorced for 5 years, mind you, and he had a girlfriend. But because he thought that my mother should have been, for some reason, single the whole time, he called me one night and said, where were you last night? And I said, I was out with my friends. Like I was literally out with my friends we lived in South Florida. I was in Delray. I was on the Ave all night. And he said, you're a fucking liar. You're taking your mother's side. I know she went on a date. You're not my kid anymore. And he hung up, and I got an eviction notice 2 weeks later from my school saying that my dad stopped paying for my tuition. He stopped paying for my school. I had to move back in with my mom. And that's when I moved to New York, because I was like, I found a cheap place. It was like $800 a month. And I was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. And I went to go see my sister, and I never left. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago, we had on and off, back and forth, and he did his thing again. And I finally was just like, he said, you're not my kid anymore. I'm done. And I was like, okay. And I hung up, and that was it. That was when I stopped. That was at that point, that was January 2022. That's when I changed the way I dated. Because to me, I was like, wait. You're the big bad wolf. I've been so scared of losing you. You're the person, right? Don't abandon me. Please don't leave me. Wait, but you did. And I'm okay. And I'm alive. And I made that choice. I told you I'm done, right? And I completely changed the way I dated. And the reason I started getting into this work was because, one, I was supposed to do Shark Tank, and they sent me home. And I'll say it, I was suicidal. I was in a dark, negative, bad, spiraling. My life is over. My career is over. Everything I worked for 7 months, they sent me home. They couldn't fit me on. My dog passed away a month later. Everything was crumbling around me. And I turned to TikTok because I said, I can't be the only person that's frustrated and hearing all of this clickbait of like, you want to get a guy to like you? Text these 3 things. And it's like, I can get a dick pic from that. You're right. I can sext from this text, but there's no depth that's coming from this. And it started to get to a point where I was like, wait a minute, why are we doing everything to get someone to choose us? Why are we? And it started in that way where I was frustrated that all of these things I was learning in therapy were completely contrary to all of this content being made. And then made me realize, wait a minute, when I do wait, I made this guy wait 8 dates and then I slept with him. Well, he ended it the next day. Like it didn't change anything. And I took my power back.
Right.
And that, to me, is how I got to where I'm at. Sorry, really long-winded story.
That's okay.
Just to bring it back to, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I wanted to be the voice that was the change.
I think one of the hardest things to incorporate change into our lifestyles is probably our cleaning products, because a lot of people think just because that smell is coming out, that means it's clean. But truly, y'all, you've heard me talk about this time and time again, that smell could actually be a toxin. So something that I've actually incorporated in our household, and I actually send the kits to all of my friends and family members as gifts time and time again, is Branch Basics products. Guys, Branch Basics never set out to sell soap. They truly are on a mission to help people create healthy homes and experience the power of pure. I am totally on this game as well. And someone that has been highly sold is our house cleaner. She has helped toss the toxins with me, and she uses Branch Basics for all of our cleaning necessities at our house. And let me tell you, we don't always live in a clean space. We've got 3 kids, 2 dogs, I've got a husband, so we've got a lot of things to clean up. 3 of the things that have really popped into my shopping cart lately are their new formula laundry detergent. Their toxic-free candle, because baby girl loves a good bath time and sitting by the candles at night when she enjoys her good veggie bowls. And also their hand soap. But two of the staples that I live by in our household, and trust me when I tell you I can use this for everything, even on my pups, is their oxygen boost and their liquid gold concentrate. So guys, I'd like to help you get started on your cleaning by giving you 15% off all starter kits. And also, guys, this applies to their hand soap and their toxic-free candle. All the things. Not only will you get your starter kit, but you can get a whole bunch of other items to stock up on. Give the gift to yourself and use my code over at Branch Basics, which is Toxic-Free KB. Guys, again, if you want 15% off, use Toxic-Free KB. Sometimes, and that's exactly why I started Toxic-Free with KB, is like, I got sick multiple times. I had to be an advocate for myself. I had to teach myself things of well-being that would actually work for me, mental health including one of them. And I think when you're sick of tired of, being sick and tired, like you make the changes, and how empowering that must have been. And I don't know the relationship you have with your dad now, but do you feel lighter? Do you feel freer? I mean, you're in a new relationship within the past couple of years, what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I met my partner so the irony of it all was lost Shark Tank. My dog passed away. And like, my dog was my object permanence. He was my everything. You have a dog, what I'm saying.
My babies.
Had him at 21, got him at 21. So to me, and then also knowing that like I moved into this apartment with mold and that's what killed him. And I was like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about mold.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going through the detox right now. Hi.
Oh, me too. Third time mold. Hey.
Yay. Okay. But we will talk about that. So the guilt of knowing that, of like, I did this to my best friend. I did the time. I didn't realize it now. And I ended it with this guy. I ended up going to San Diego down to see my sister, and I met my partner 2 days later because I really had just surrendered, and I didn't talk to my dad. I hadn't spoken to him from January 2022 until last summer. And my partner was with me and he said, do you want to talk to him? And I was like, yeah, I think it's time. And I called him and my partner was next to me. He didn't see him on the call, just to have that support system. And right now our relationship is as good as it's going to ever get, right? Like, it's so shallow. It's so limited. Oh yeah, you're doing well. His response is just be happy. And I'm like, oh, that's it? Oh, I didn't realize
Okay, gotta go.
Oh, perfect. Just be happy. You're right. That's it. And it's a very just like blanketed statement. But I also know that I didn't have him in my life. And the choice I made was, there's a little girl inside of me that was really sad not to have her father. And there was a little girl inside of me that, as much as she knows he'll never be the father that she wants him to be, he's the father that he is currently. And I get to make a choice. Do I want to go to his deathbed and wish that I'd spoken to him? Or do I want to make the choice that I can have a very limited relationship, but I know he loves me in his own capacity? And it's two conflicting thoughts. I can know that you're never going to be the dad I want, but I can also know that the dad you are is enough for now.
Yeah.
So
that's 100%. I agree with that. You almost learn to see it through a different lens and have just love and compassion for that inner child that you have, but also the child within him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%. Because narcissism really starts at that 0 to 1 age, that symbiotic phase, the symbiotic phase. So I have so much compassion for my father of like, oh man, you're a tortured soul, live in that body. And I'm sorry you have to go through that.
Yeah. And so when you closed that door of like, beating yourself up and all the things because dad doesn't accept me for, the way that I want him to accept me, you had that self-awareness to create the healing, to create a path for you to have a beautiful relationship of support. What is the importance of that personal healing step before you hit into a new relationship?
Oh, baby. You hurt in relationships, you'll heal in relationships. But I'm sure you can understand what I'm about to say. We think dating's hard, try the relationship, right? Like, we think dating's the hard part. That's the fun part. Because what happens in a relationship, you're triggered nonstop. Not because there's anything wrong. Like, I saw one, and this was a doctor who said it, and I was like, oh God, get bent. And she said, just don't date people that trigger you. Like, that's it. Just don't. And it's like,
everyone triggers me.
Everything in life will trigger you. Right. I could hear a song and I cry because that song reminded me of my dog. Like, everything's a trigger. And the importance of doing that inner healing is, and I want to clarify, this isn't, you have to be healed in order to be in a relationship, but you have to have your own personal healing journey, because what will happen is you'll get in this relationship, right? And then this person starts to they're a human, right? They're going to do things that are I'm sure your husband, as much as you love him, he pisses you off all the time and you piss him off, right? Because there's going to be things of like, oh, you left that door open again. Like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Oh gosh.
Right. Or like,
should we talk about it?
Yeah. Or like, oh yeah, you're just going to leave the toilet seat up. Like, okay, cool. And really what this healing journey allows you to do is a couple of things. It allows you to expand your window of tolerance. And what I mean by window of tolerance is like, it's not that a trigger sends you up and you're needing that constant up and down, that volatility, because that's just dysregulation. When we understand safety in our bodies personally, right? Like if I have just a safety within myself that no matter what, I'm going to be okay. And I trust my gut, not my anxiety. Well, then I'm going to date differently because I'm not going to date people like my father. I'm not going to date people that just reaffirm my core beliefs of let me prove it to you and let me keep showing you and let me just have sex with you now and tell you how amazing you're fall in love with me. No, instead what it did was allow me to set boundaries and say, hey, that doesn't work for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And if they didn't respect it, great, because I knew no matter what I was going to be okay. And I knew how to tap into my wants, needs, and desires. And I wasn't scared of losing people. When you're more scared of, if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything. And if you're scared of them leaving, I would already say the bigger fear happened, you already lost yourself.
Yeah.
It's too much of a risk.
Yeah. And jumping on to that, I want to talk about releasing the baggage, right? Releasing the baggage. There's so many people that have tons of baggage from the past. I had like maybe a carry-on with me. My husband likes to say, he's like, I had like a shipping crate behind me. Like, you know, he had a lot of stuff coming with him. And if I could relate to the lighter feather side, I was like, what? And I had to jump into literally a 0% life of like, I get to go for walks and look at flowers to like, yeah. I can't even catch my breath, you know? And like, what is happening? 0 to 1,000% literally in a couple months.
Oh shit. Okay.
And talk about central nervous system regulation, but talk about, you know, let's jump into releasing the baggage from the past or just better managing that.
So I think, the nervous system is such a huge part in this, right? Like really understanding what are my regulating techniques, right? Like for me, walks are everything. I'll go on 20 walks in a day. Like you'll see me all around the neighborhood. I look like this psychopath just on my phone because I'm like, it's how I process, right? Like the bilateral movements of one foot, it just helps me. I think when it comes to releasing the baggage in the past, I married my father. I was in a relationship with a man that was textbook my father. Like he was gaslighting me.
You were married before?
Oh. When I was 26 for just a year, or 27 to 28. And it was incredibly volatile and toxic. And it was big screams, big fights, big. And it's like, yeah, don't get me wrong. It took me a minute. But you know what changed the game? The reason I didn't carry that baggage and project that onto every other fucking person that I dated was because I understood my partner. And when we take 100% radical accountability of, yeah, you're right. I was with a narcissistic POS and he was really thinking, but you know what was my part in it? I allowed it. I didn't have boundaries. I was too scared to say anything because he reminded me of my father. By doing that, we're not shaming, right? There's no shame or blame. There's no, oh, you fucking idiot. You're stupid. You should have done. No. That doesn't have a place here. That's my father's language. I don't need to have that in my head anymore. Mm-hmm. Releasing that baggage in the past is I understand my part in it. I understand why I did this and why I allowed this. And fuck, I really get that. So then I can know, but now I trust myself that I will make better decisions and I don't need to project that because I have the tools to go, wait. I've said that to my partner. Sometimes I'll be like, God, you're like my dad. And I'll stop and I'll go, that's not fair to you. You're not like my dad. You trigger me in the same ways, but you're not him. And it's so important to be able to, because what happens is the past becomes the present. And when we're dysregulated and we haven't worked through all of that stuff and felt the pain and like really allowed ourselves, what we end up doing is we hold on to the core belief that comes with it. There's something wrong with me. I'm too much. I'm not good enough. And then that gets projected onto all these future partners when it's like, hey, don't get me wrong. Being cheated on, right? Things like that. They're awful and you didn't do anything to deserve it, but that doesn't mean that now every person that you meet is going to do the same things to you. And if we consistently enter in, then what you're doing is you're not being fair to the next person because then that's them going, oh, so now I have to convince you I'm not this, as opposed to allow people to be innocent until proven guilty, as opposed to being guilty and you have to prove them innocent.
Yeah.
It's going to be way more exhausting. And when we were trying to release, accept it, right? And I think that's the hardest part is people accepting their part in it without shame and blame. Because it's either, oh, I'm an idiot or I'm stupid, right? Or we have black and white thinking. They're bad, I'm good, or I'm good, they're bad, right? We have to have that polarity as opposed to interjecting the gray of the brushstrokes to say, they played a part and so did I. And that's okay. I don't need to play that part any further.
You know, and I think, I want to throw out the word, maybe that comes with the person doing the work and being mature, or maybe one person doing the work.
Emotional intelligence for sure.
Emotional intelligence for sure. But something that just kind of clicked in my head when we were talking about childhood upbringings, and then moving into relationships that perhaps prolonged the pattern of that, normalized dysfunction.
Yes.
I don't know why, but this actually has to go hand in hand with baggage too. Normalized dysfunction in households, and maybe we can use myself as an example, becoming a stepmother. And obviously my kids are older, so they're 21, 18, and 12. But what they had as a normal family dynamic was brought in. And I was like, this is like, so why are you guys like teasing each other? Like, I don't like this. Like, that's hurtful. Like, come, and that was like a little normalized dysfunction. Yes, things have changed. Things have shifted since I've come into the picture. But I just remember being like, no, I grew up in a house where like my sisters we weren't like best buddies because we had so much conflict and so much volatility in the house that I was like, oh, is this going to be my life forever? And so that's the same thing. It's like, when is the other shoe going to drop?
Yep. And that's why we look and go, oh, like even one of my friends I was talking to today, like I had to let go of somebody on our team, right? That just like wasn't doing their job. Like that's just no other way to put it. And the email that I got was, they talk about cognitive dissonance, where I was like, are we like, is this the same company that you were like, just such a complete, where you're like, was I on different emails than you? Cause like none of this is adding up. And I remember I was sending my friends a doctor and I was like, I need your help. Cause we both help each other when you're triggered and you're like, oh, I don't know what to say. And he stopped me and he left me a voice note and he goes, stop, you're not going to repeat this pattern anymore. And I said, what? And he goes, you don't need to over-explain yourself. Just tell her, you're right. I think we disagree. Thank you so much. Take care. And that's what I did. And I had this whole paragraph written. I deleted the paragraph and I said, I think you're right. This isn't compatible. I truly wish you all the best. Take care. And it's a different empowerment because it's true. The little girl in me was like, go and explain, right? This is what you're used to. And to your point, when we have dysfunctional households, hello, hi, me, right? My father used to leave, he used to hit us, all those. If I don't go to another house on the block, I think that this is what everybody's experiencing. And we underestimate, this isn't about like, oh, stop living in the past. It's like, no, acknowledge that the past is what's shaping your present so that then you can change something about it. Because if we continue to say, well, no, that's just the past, you're doing that. You're showing the boys, if they're all boys, you're showing the kids a new way of doing things and you're shifting that dynamic. But look how long it takes, right? Like when we have that dysfunction, when we come from that childhood, it's going to take a minute, especially when we realize, oh shit, I'm doing the same thing my parents did, right? Or like one of my clients, and love him, but like dates his mother every single time and then wonders why he feels the same. And when I say, how old do you feel? God, I feel like a child. I'm like, cool, that's the dynamic we're reliving. And so I think it's so important that if we have, right, if you can even just acknowledge, yes, I came from dysfunction. Can I tap into what did the little kid in me think about that? Who was the adult that wasn't present to validate, you're right, that wasn't cool. You're right, that was dysfunction. That's just in and of itself so freeing because you're like, cool, I'm not crazy.
Yeah. No. Ooh, trigger word. Crazy. Right? So with working out of those patterns that were deeply ingrained in us as children. So my husband, fun fact, we actually on our third date, we went to therapy. I went to his therapist with him because we were having a conversation about therapy. And I think I probably manifested this, like, because I was like, would you ever do couples therapy? Because my parents are divorced and they tried it and one does not believe in therapy, right? And so he basically was telling me, my husband was basically telling me like, like I just came from therapy or whatever, or I have to go to therapy. Would you like to come? And I think he was kind of like kidding. And I'm like, sure. So I went to therapy with him and his therapist obviously she already heard about me, everything about me. She knew exactly who I was, but she didn't know I was coming that day. And
surprise!
So, yeah. So from then on out, we literally started going. We still see her to this day once a week. And I remember she told something so clearly. And she said, you're not here because we have problems. We're here because we're tightening the bolts along the way.
100%.
And still to this day, we celebrated our second marriage anniversary about a month ago, but I even had an epiphany last week, and I was crying to him during a session, and I said, I'm voicing my, this part of me because I do not want to repeat the relationship that I saw, and I have to know that I am safe to do this. I do not want to repeat that. And God, it's so uncomfortable because my therapist is like, look him in the eyes, and say it with not as a question mark, say it, stand by it, sit up tall and feel that energy. Because when you do that, when you say something out loud, you change things.
100%. You are the epitome of you hurt in relationships, but you also heal in relationships, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same. I can totally relate. My partner and I are in therapy, not because we have anything wrong, right? Because we're like, no, let's make sure that if we're going to go put a ring on this, that we're kosher, right? We are good. We're on the same page of shit. And it's really, really important. Not everybody has to be in therapy, of course, but it's really important to be able to have an experience that's contrary belief, because otherwise we have cognitive biases, right? Everyone treats me like this, everything. And then you're right, in the past they have, but we don't have facts to prove that that's what's going to happen in the future. And I think it's so beautiful as a testament that you were able to take something that was triggering to you, that is, this is going to happen. And you have a partner now saying, not on my watch. Yeah. And that can say, you're right. I do want to hear you. I do want to see. And that was healing for me. When I first met my partner and he was like, no, I want to hear what you think. I was like, who paid you? Right? What are you talking about? You want to hear what I think? No, it's okay. It's okay if you say no. And he would respect a boundary. And I was like, I'm not used to that.
Yeah. So uncomfortable.
And we underestimate, right? We're so used to don't do this and don't do this. But what we don't talk enough about is, oh, no. You ready to receive? You ready to go against the core beliefs that you were too much and you're not enough and you're not good enough and you're not worthy, when you have someone in your face going, I think you are? Because then you have to receive it. And that's really tough, because then we go against, it's easy to go, oopsie, spot it, go run. But then when you meet someone and you're like, oh, this is so uncomfortable because this is what safety feels like, that in and of itself is work.
Truth.
Right?
Seriously. So when people get beyond, they're changing the patterns of their lifestyle, they're going on the dates, right? This is the fun part, right? Mm-hmm. The fun part. Actually, I thought I was so uncomfortable the entire time. I had to be completely honest with you.
Dating?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I'm an interviewer. And I was like, all right, I've got my little checklist. Are you going to dot all my I's and cross all my T's? Which is horrible. Overcoming perfectionist over here. But red flags versus green flags. Red flags versus green flags. What are some red flags that get overlooked?
So when we look at red flags, what that really is just, it's an alert about behavior and characteristics of a person, right? So we'll go oh, red flag, they didn't call me. And it's that's not a fucking red flag. You know what a red flag is? Blatant disrespect. Somebody gaslighting you, somebody going against what you're trying to say, someone who's rude to the wait staff, right? The red flags they are inclination that this is a personality, maybe if you want to say defect, right? But this is a personality trait that is concerning to me, right? And I hear this all the time of oh, well, he talked about this, that's a red flag. And it's I'd love to know, what's a red flag about it? What made you uncomfortable about what this person said? Versus green flags. Green flags aren't that he texts me every morning, good morning. No, that's actually to me more of a red flag, because I'm you met this person once and they're already texting you every single day. I'm a little confused, right? And hey, if you're cool with it and you can walk away from this, do you? But too many people look at that as, yay, keep going. When it's no, a green flag to me is, are they consistent? Consistency doesn't mean, yeah, they call me every day at the same time. No, that's not consistent. That's predictable. Consistent means they're reliable and their words and actions align, right? And how are you going to know that? It takes time. That is not something that you're going to be able to tell off the first 2 weeks. You can see, because I'll get this, he was consistent. And I'm until, right, for 2 weeks. It's so then they weren't consistent. That was an act. So we want to see, are they consistent? Are they reliable? Are they reciprocal, right? Is this reciprocity? Am I serving a ball and you're serving it back? Do they respect my boundaries? Do they validate my feelings? Do I feel safe with them emotionally, not just physically? That's also a huge part. Do I feel seen, heard, and understood? Right? Do I feel this person really values what I'm saying? Do they celebrate my wins, or are they in competition with me? Right? Does this person get curious? Are they curious about what's going on with me? Or are they just using that and putting it in their back pocket and then they're going to use that on me in 2 months? So when we're looking at red flags or green flags, what we want to look at is this a personality of a person, right? That's the red flag of, oh, they gaslight. Oh, they're manipulative. Oh, they keep canceling. They're flaky. That's a personality of this person, not just, oh, they have a green car and I don't like her. It's like, oh my God, right? Because then we start to look at those icks and all of this. And what I see is too much rigidity. And when there's too rigid, then what we're doing is, oh, you're just trying to find a problem, as opposed to, yikes, the red flag was this guy discredited me, right? Like when I expressed myself, they told me you sound crazy. And like we said, that is a triggering word. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as crazy.
Yeah. What does that mean?
What does it mean, right? My friend Britt Frank is a neuropsychotherapist and she's like, there's no such thing. What we say is it's trauma, right? Mm-hmm. You're not crazy. There's no such thing as it. But it allows us to go, oh, right, so I'm not. And I think what we want to look at is, does this person respect you, right? Like I can imagine as you're thinking back on your relationship, you're like, yeah, he was consistent. He was thoughtful, right? He was compassionate, empathetic, right? Gave me a space to express myself. Didn't judge me for being vulnerable. Those are all the beautiful red flags we're looking for, not the, oh, well, he's really well dressed or she's really pretty. And it's like, yeah, that's going to fade.
Yeah. He gave me his time. I think that was a huge green flag. If I could share some of my green flags.
Please.
He gave me his time. My husband is we're both pretty busy, but he is one of the busiest people I've ever known. And I was telling you I was pretty new into town and we would go on walks. Like he would leave his office and we'd go on walks.
It's huge.
And
they're fitting you into their life authentically.
Right. And I was like, he doesn't have time. And so I would be like, thank you so much for giving me your time, because he literally is on phone calls after phone calls, meetings after meetings every single day. He has 3 kids, all these things. And I was like, he gave me his time to nurture our relationship. The other thing is we're talking about trauma, right? We've both been through trauma on both sides, and you and me. And
oh yeah,
the hardest part of my relationship being with him is that I had to see my trauma, and I had to be brave to say, oh my God, he's going to make me peel off the scabs so they can breathe and heal. And
not add salt to them.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's been hard, but it's been so beautiful because he has literally perpetuated and been the catalyst to my healing.
It's beautiful.
So many things in life.
And that's what it's like. There is only so much you could do alone. And then there's a lot that you could do with someone else.
Yeah.
My partner and I cannot relate more. It's like we are breaking through barriers and things of he didn't realize he has his shit. I didn't realize I do my things. And it's such a beautiful experience to have someone. And to your point, I love that you mentioned he made time for me, because how many people would go, well, they don't take me out and they're not doing this. And they're always busy. And it's you're right. There is no one busier than someone that's not interested, right? There is nobody on this place. Sorry, I'm busy. Oh, sorry, I'm busy. And it's there's a difference between sorry, I'm busy as an excuse versus I'm swamped today. I can make time for you do you have an hour? Can I just see you for a walk?
Yes.
2 different experiences. And what's beautiful is you saw that as, wow, thank you so much for making the time, which allowed him to feel more comfortable to give you more and to let you into more, because he was like, wow, she respects me. She's not attacking me. Because I've had it where clients will call me well, fuck this guy and all this. And I'm and then you wonder why he's not opening up to you. You wonder why this person doesn't feel comfortable, because you need them to do what you want, as you want it, when you want it, but you're not looking at how this person's trying to love you. My partner, when we first met, we went on a couple of dates. We went out to, we went hiking and dinner on our first day. And then our second date was an arcade, we tried to do fun stuff. And he's a cook. he's not a chef by trade, but this man can whip up 5-star meals.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's incredible. And so he had me on our third date. He was I came over. I said, let me cook for you. And it was pathetic. I'm not a chef. And on the 4th date, he was why don't I cook for you? And I was okay. And so I went over and he made me dinner. And then it would be probably there was another 4 dates like that. And I remember calling my mom and she goes, no, he needs to take you out. What are you, a call girl? No. And I talked to him about it and I said, hey, I so appreciate all of this, but I do want to still be courted. And he even stopped and he was oh my God, absolutely. And in that moment, that's when I realized oh, this is how you're trying to show me that you care about me, not love me because you didn't know me that well. But I could have totally overlooked that. But he made it a whole thing, right? I came over and there was my favorite meal made and my dessert was sitting there. And it was you could see he thought about it. He was caring. And that's what he had to offer me. It wasn't that he took me to these fancy places and all of that. But had I not seen it, I would have totally overlooked it. Kind of very similar to you of, wait a minute, this is how this person's showing up for me. can we make space that not everybody lives in the way that we do? And if that works for me, right, and you, explore it and allow this person to open up a little bit more.
Right. When one person opens up, the other person will open up.
If they have the bandwidth, absolutely.
If they have the bandwidth.
Totally.
You were talking about, well, actually in the beginning, we were talking about going slow in dating. So what are 3 tips of going slow in dating?
Going slow is not an excuse for bad behavior. And we have to remember that going slow isn't just mean that like this person just never calls you, right? Going slow just means you're not expediting the stages of a relationship quicker than they need to be. So that means that like, yeah, if I've just known you for a week, that doesn't mean that I'm meeting your friends and family. And like I've had that where like, oh, the first month we went on 2 trips and I met their family. And it's like, and then you wonder why this person ghosted because the pinch doesn't match the outs. When you start at 100, where else are you going to go? So we want to be able to add in and do things. The second aspect is have boundaries. Do not, I can't tell you how many times I hear it of like, oh, they asked me out for Friday. Okay, so I'll cancel my plans. No. Live your life. You have your girls' night, go to your girls' night. Like you had plans to go away that weekend and this person's only free then. Sorry, babe. I'll see you when I get back. It's okay to say no and set boundaries. It's a beautiful thing when going slow. And the third thing I would say is really focus on narrative and your nervous system. Because when we go slow, right, again, it's not an excuse for bad behavior. You can still have conversations of depth. You can still be vulnerable and transparent, but you don't need to trauma dump, right? Like on my first date, I don't need to start telling people how my father was abusive to me. Like that person doesn't need to know all of this about me, at least for my comfort level, right? And so for me, going slow just means that I'm giving you enough to show me where I fit into your life. And I want to see, because it's like a contract renegotiation, right? Like I send it back, you send it back to me. Okay, let's keep another round. And it's more about like trust is earned. I give you a little, I see how you, great, I give you more. And that to me, I think is why going slow is beautiful, because you're able to your point, right? You guys went slow in the physical aspect as well. And like you said, you were able to build such a beautiful foundation that wasn't rocked versus first month, oh, we moved in together and we did all this. And you're like, yeah, but you had nothing keeping this building afloat. So one rainstorm comes in and the whole lot is down because you didn't have a solid foundation to begin with.
Right. I 100% agree with that. On the topic of setting boundaries, on that topic, how can people set healthy boundaries without feeling like they're pushing them away?
Well, let's talk about that. One, where'd you learn that from? Right? Where did you learn that setting a boundary means I'm going to lose this person? Right? For me, that was my dad. When I'd set a boundary, he would leave. So I always thought my needs are, okay, no, I can't say anything. Oh, wait, that doesn't mean that that's accurate. A second thing, a boundary doesn't keep people out. They protect what's in. A boundary is so that I can continue to show up sustainably and have you in my life. So people misconstrue it all the time with like a boundary, like you can't call me after 9. No. That person can absolutely call you after 9. You just don't have to answer. The boundary isn't you're not allowed to. A boundary isn't about the other person. You can't do this. You can't do this. The boundary is I will not answer the phone after 9 o'clock should you call me.
Airplane mode.
Exactly. Same. D&D. I don't remember the last time I heard my phone make a noise or a ring.
Same.
Ooh, remember the days we used to pay for ringtones? So it's just important when we look at our boundaries, are our boundaries rigid, right? We don't want it to be like, it's my way or the highway. Boundaries can be flexible of like, oh, you know what? Okay, I could do 8:30, right? Normally I don't do past it. Fine, I could do 8:15. So it's about knowing what's a non-negotiable, right? Yeah. Versus, and I think we misconstrue that because the point of a boundary means that I want to keep you in my life. I'm not trying to get rid of you. And I want to keep you by telling you this is what I need from you in order to keep showing up as myself.
So what are some common signs, like if someone's like totally like over the moon for someone and they're trying to set boundaries, but someone's not respecting them, what are some common signs that they should truly open up their eyes and see that they're not being respected?
I think it's about how do they speak to you, right? So if I say, hey, I'm so sorry, like I can't make 6 o'clock, or like for me, I don't drink alcohol. It's just like not my thing.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's not my vice. And so when I used to tell guys, if I would set that and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I don't drink alcohol. If they were respecting my band, no worries, let's try something else. Versus, come on, don't be such a square. Come on, oh my God, don't be lame. What, grandma? And I was like, cool, you're disrespecting me.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's where we want to look. Like if you're saying, I keep setting boundaries, it's like, then stop allowing those people to cross them. Boundaries don't mean shit if you don't implement them. If I tell you, hey, don't touch that, and then you touch it, why would I keep inviting you over? I said, don't touch it. That's on me then. Mm-hmm. Again, a boundary is not to control somebody else. It's that I can look and go, oh, you don't respect what I say? No, thank you. And so that is where I would say, again, what's the dysregulation? What's happening in our bodies? If I told you to come over and said, please leave your shoes at the door, there's actually 7 types of boundaries. It's like, I don't know all of them. It's like a space boundary, there's emotional boundaries, there's home boundary, like there's different types. And so if I said, hi, could you please leave your shoes at the door? And you still walk into my house, hi, excuse me, I asked you to please leave your shoes at the door. The dog, it brings in dirt. If you don't, what's my next move? Hi, okay, then you can leave the house.
Yeah.
Versus if they just keep walking, because guess what they just learned is you don't mean anything. Your boundaries don't mean anything. You're not implementing them.
Yeah. I mean, that goes through and through with everything in life.
Everything.
I think, just applying that to dating or relationships in general. I think relationships with children, that is something I've had to learn like so fast. And it's to be honest with you, Sabrina, it's brought up a lot of growth within me, but it also some triggers that I've had to work through because I'm like, I still feel like I just like popped into this picture here. But now obviously I'm really solidified. I'm like, I'm an adult. Hello. I'm much older than you. But, like those things, I told my clients that, when you set boundaries, it shows the other person how they treat you.
Exactly.
Right?
And what you allow. Because if I set a boundary and you don't respect it, then it's on me. That's not on you. I'm not, because again, a boundary is not to control someone else. It's only to say, because then what the next response is, then I'm going to remove myself. It's like talking to a child. Okay, I told you, like, if you're not, okay, well, then I'm going to have to walk out. Like, I'm going to have to remove myself from the situation if you're going to keep doing that because I can't talk to you if you're going to say that.
Yeah.
And it's really important because then what happens is narcissists and people like that, people that are out of malice, let's say, if you are consistently setting boundaries and then the person is doing it anyways, then let me tell you, they don't respect you and they don't believe you because I hate to say it, but you're full of shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, truly. It's also a nice, beautiful way to kind of say like, these are the needs that I need to be met in my life.
Totally.
Yeah. So going into this term, God, I feel like an old woman. I'm like Kansas, like naive girl. You were like saying all these terms, walking. I'm like, what's that?
Yeah. You're like, I'm gonna get Google out real quick.
I mean, even just like within the last year, I learned what situationship meant, and I'm like, what? You know? So like, let's talk about situationships.
Situationships are just a lack of communication. That's all there is. All right. Like, and that's the thing.
Really?
Yeah. Because that's the thing. I saw an article and they're like, Gen Z created a new term called situationship. And I was like, get bent. That's been around for millennia. They didn't create that. All a situationship means is one or both are not communicating their needs. So if we're in a situationship, because usually what you'll hear is like, I'm in this situationship. Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know how they feel. I don't know where they're at. I don't know what they want. But we're keep like hugging. So what you're doing is you're having a romantic or physical connection without any clear boundaries or understanding of what you're doing. So more often than not, like, that's why I'm like, no. Think back on early dating when you're like, no, I definitely dated people where I was too scared to say anything. They would have me to come over and I would just do it because I just hoped that they were going to choose me. That's a situationship, right? Neither one of you are communicating wants and needs. Maybe the other person might have mentioned, I don't know if I'm just going to go with the flow, right? I don't want any commitment. There's no labels. There's no commitment. There's no clear understanding of what you're doing. That's a situationship.
So if there's no clarity, you can't cry if you get hurt.
It's one of those where I'm like, cool, why are you allowing this, right?
Yeah.
Like, for me, if I'm going to date, well, I don't want to push them away. I don't want to be too much. Again, where'd you learn that from? That you having a need? Because here's the thing. You're right. You might push them away. You might be too much, quote unquote. It's not you who is, it's what you want because that person was never going to do it. Right? Because if I came to you, you and I are dating hypothetically, and we've been sleeping together for 2 months and no one's saying anything. And I come to you and say, I'd really love a relationship. I don't just want physical. I don't want just a casual. Yeah, that might be too much for them because that person doesn't have the emotional bandwidth and doesn't want a relationship. So of course it's going to send them running. Good. Let me hold the door open for you.
Yeah.
Because that gets me closer to what I want, not further away.
Yeah. Communication, define the relationship. If that's what you want, like set the boundaries, right? Set the boundaries. Talking about conflict, what are some strategies for approaching disagreements in a way that keeps basically that healthy foundation?
Couple of things. One, regulate before you go into this, right? Like go for a walk around the block. Like how many times I've done that where I'm like, I want to rip my partner's head off. And I'm like, you know what? But does the pinch match the ouch, right? Like, okay, he didn't do this one thing and you want to like go rage him like DEFCON 1. So first off, regulate. Second of all, knowing and understanding conflict is normal. Conflict is totally normal. You know what's not normal? Disrespect. My partner and we've raised our voices just out of upset. Like when you're just frustrated, I've never cursed at him. Or I've never cursed you. I've never said, you fucking asshole, you piece of, no. I will say a curse word in a sentence. I am not disrespectful to my partner.
Right.
Use I statements. That is the numero uno. So if I'm going to come to you, let's say the disagreement is, you told me you were going to do something and you didn't. I'm just pulling this out. I would come to you after regulating and I would understand, okay, what upset me, right? It's not the fact that they told me they were going to take the garbage out and they didn't. What upset me was that you didn't really actually listen to me. I don't feel like I'm heard. I feel like I tell you something 6 times because, well, you didn't take the trash out. Well, come on, I was busy. It's not about the trash. What it's about is, do my feelings not matter to you, right? So I need to regulate to understand what I'm trying to communicate to this partner. So I would start it with, hey, can I share something with you? And I would ask for consent. I want to make sure that they're in the right headspace to receive. Otherwise, it's not going to go. Can I share something with you? Yeah, what's up? I felt, I care very deeply about you and I really, really love our relationship, right? Disarming somebody to let them know can I talk to you or I need to talk to you. In what world is that ever going to work? I want to.
That's an attack right there.
Right? If somebody comes to me like, we need to talk, I'm like, yikes, no, we don't. I don't want to hear it. Email me. But I said, what we're trying to do is disarm the other person to receive. Oh, okay. Yeah. You want to share something with me? What's going on? I'm telling you this because I really care about you. And this was something that was really triggering for me. It's not that you didn't take the trash out. That's not actually the issue. What I felt the issue was I didn't feel like you were listening to me. I didn't really feel heard. And I felt like it was very disrespectful that when I asked you to do something, you discredited me. Moving forward, if I say something, validate my emotions and feelings. Let me know that it's okay that I say this. And then please let's have a conversation, right? Or whatever, right? Moving forward, I need this. That's it. That will right there. I remember my partner for the first time, he told me, calm down. And I was like, what world does a woman calm down when you tell her to? And all I said was, I stopped and I took a minute and I looked at him and I said, can I share something with you? And he was like, yeah, what's up? And I said, that felt very dismissive. It felt like you were diminishing what I was feeling. And I felt like I wasn't actually seen. And it was very triggering to how I felt as a child. Moving forward, can we find a new word like regulate or something else that would be a lot easier for me to digest? Because I know you didn't do this out of malice, but I need to be honest of how it landed. And he looked at me and he was like, absolutely. I am so sorry if my actions made you feel like that. I never meant to. And he was like, moving forward, regulate works for you. Great. That's the word I'll use.
Great.
And then we moved on. That was it.
That's all I had to do.
That was it.
I mean, my husband, we even had a conversation. I don't know what we were talking about. It was one of those and blah, 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 and we were just jumbling about something. We kind of went on this tangent and I said, you know what? Stop. I said, why are we even having this conversation? And he's like, you know what? You're right. And I was like, let's just.
What is this about? Right?
Yeah. What? Is it because we're both stressed?
Exactly. And that's where we have to stop and be like, no, it's not about you didn't buy me flowers. You didn't. It's like, am I a priority to you? Right? Like, what are the actual root of the issue? Get to that first before you go to somebody. It will yield a completely different result. And like my partner always says, relationships are one giant conversation. Yeah. Keep talking. Do not let stuff go weeks without saying you really hurt my feelings or I didn't appreciate how you dismissed me in front of other people, because you teach people how to treat you by what you allow.
I love that. And this is a big conflict that has come up probably in the past couple of weeks and you mentioned it before, but going into a relationship or being in a relationship with someone and the topic of politics comes up. Yeah. I mean, are some people getting divorced right now because of what has happened in the world?
Absolutely.
I mean, and how do you handle that type of conflicting situation? Conflicting of, well, I believe in this and I believe in that, but I see this side but I don't see that side. How do you have that conversation without being like, but I hate you, you know?
I would say it's a couple of things. So one, for anybody who is dating right now, have these conversations early on. Like my first date with my partner, it wasn't like a spitfire. We were just walking and I was like, where do you fall politically? Like, are you more this, more this? And he said, and I was like, okay, well, I'm more this. Like, does that bother you? Does this affect you? Have conversations of what are your non-negotiables? Because to some people, they might say, oh, I don't really give a fuck about this. Like, I don't care. Whatever you believe in, I'm fine. You're like, okay, cool. This is great. So I can be on my high horse and I could be on my pedestal, on like my soapbox of all what's happening. Some people are staunch of like, I will not change this. And what I would say is a couple of things. One, right now, it is really sad to see people are excommunicating friends and family. because we've gotten into a place, I feel like, just in our culture where there's just no more conversation. There's no more agree to disagree. There's no more, you're allowed to have your opinion and I'm in mine. It's either like, you're with me or you're against me. You're an idiot if you don't think what I think. So it's like a lot of this black and white judgment. I'll say this. I'm going to make it might be a controversial statement. If I'm dating somebody and they're going to break up with me because I have a different opinion they do and we're not going to have a conversation about it, that's not somebody I'm going to be dating. That's not somebody I want a relationship with, because what that means is, so if I don't agree with you, then you don't respect me anymore. That's not cool with me. And I think like my partner and I, we had some differences of things that were going on. I'm not going to say specifics, but we definitely did. And I consistently was like, hey, I want to touch base. Is this a non-negotiable? Like the way I think? Because if it is, that's okay. But we need to see if this is going to be an issue moving forward.
Right.
At fundamentally, because if one person believes in abortion and gay marriage, let's just use that, and the other one thinks that this is vehemently wrong and well then cool. If you're both really passionate about that topic, you're going to consistently hit and butt heads with it because it's going to happen in other ways.
Right.
So I think it's also being realistic that like, it's okay to outgrow people and it's okay. I think what we have to do is again, approaching someone like there's something that happened politically or what's going on. Can we talk about this? I'd love to get curious and understand what makes you think that. Right. And then like I've had my conversations with Ryan and I'll pull up statistics and I'm like, okay, but you just said this and this is what I got. And he'll look and he's like, oh, well, I actually didn't know that. Okay, go on. Wait, we're trying to learn from each other and get curious. If you don't have curiosity, it's going to be really tough to be able to move on.
I think the art of communication is lost in the culture, and I'd like to see that come back. And that's why, for one reason I have my podcasts, I interview in person because I want to feel their energy. Yeah. I miss that in the world. And I think, politics aside, but just in general, like we need to get back to the person. And I think we all need to start having like open conversations, talking about difference of opinions. And I think once people realize, that's a need for the human, that they will meet that person if they're looking to meet that person, because they'll be like, oh, I talked about something I didn't know we were going to talk about, or I learned something from you, wow, what beauty and difference there is.
100%.
Truly.
I don't want someone just like me. Oh, how boring, right? Like, how am I going to grow and evolve if you're just the same? That's why the cool girl and the nice guy always do finish last, because when you don't stand for something, it's really not attractive.
Yeah. So going into toxic behaviors, what are some toxic behaviors? This might go into red flags, but what are some toxic behaviors that we should look out for?
Oh, Lord. It really depends on I would say, again, does this person respect your boundaries? Is this person having conversations of depth? Like toxic stuff that I see is trauma dumping. There's definitely extremes, right? We see on the anxious side, if we're looking at if we're going to look at attachment styles, right? And if we're looking at that anxious side, so somebody who's toxic with that anxious is like the codependency, right? Like their world revolves around you and you have to validate them and you have to let them know everything's okay. And if you don't call them, they're losing their shit. Like that's not healthy. Right? Like the pinch has to match the ouch. Same for the polarizing opposite of somebody who's a little bit more avoidant, right? Do they stonewall? Do they shut down? Are they not having these conversations? Are they discrediting you? Are they gaslighting you? Are they manipulating you? Are they trying to discredit what you're even thinking? Are they not saying that that's okay. You're allowed to think that. What we want to look at is just those basic behaviors, because then what we can see is, again, I might look and say, okay, so just because this person doesn't text me every day, but they show up on these dates, they're having these amazing conversations. Well, that doesn't mean that they're toxic. Versus, yikes, man, I had one date with this person and they were telling me their whole childhood story or one person said, they wrote me in saying, I had this amazing, great first date. They told me that they wanted a second date, but I haven't been able to sleep. I can't eat. And it's like, that's not healthy.
Ooh.
Right? Like that's incredibly toxic and then I've been checking my phone. I've texted them 3 times and you're like, the pinch doesn't match the ouch.
And what's going on internally for you? Where's that coming from?
What firefighters are trying to put out this flame. That's the stuff we want to look at is do they understand that relationship is independence and interdependence coming together? Mm-hmm. That I can still hold my life. That's so sexy when I find out, when I was dating Ryan and we're in a relationship, but when we were just in our courtship phase, how many times I'd be like, do you want to do this Friday? And he'd be like, sorry, I have my cousin's dinner. Or nope, sorry, I have plans. And I was like, ooh.
Boundaries,
right? You have your own life. But then but I'd love to see you Saturday. And you're like, cool, independence, interdependence. We want to look for a balance. We can't have the pendulum swinging so severely. And also seeing that people are going to take time to open up. And so like, let's give them a minute. It doesn't mean that, well, he doesn't want to share anything. He's toxic. It's like, maybe this person also just doesn't trust you. And maybe we can also look internally and be like, am I the red flag? Right? Am I being the one that's toxic? And am I being the one that's something to be of concern? Or is it really just maybe we're not right for each other?
Yeah. So I can tell you and I both we're a little more like high wired. We may run on a little, like this morning I was like, babe, I woke up feeling anxious. And he sits on the bathtub. He's like, really? He's like, why? And I'm like, it's just a feeling. I just feel it. So I feel like you might go on that wavelength a lot.
Oh yeah.
How do you suggest people handle relationship anxiety? Maybe from a past toxic relationship, when they're going into a new one.
Totally. Again, get back to your nervous system, get back to the narrative, right? So the first thing I would say is, okay, where do you feel this in your body? What's happening? What are the sensations in your body right now? And if you're like, oh, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, oh my God, my shoulders are super tense. Oh, wow. Like I feel like it's like a pit in my stomach. God, my throat. I feel like I can't spit. It's like, okay, so that's where it's manifesting. Okay. So what are the sensations in your body? Can we sit with this for a minute? Because when we get anxiety, fear of the future, I need to know now. I need certainty. And that's what we don't have all the time. So the biggest flex of somebody with high anxiety is learning patience and putting space, right? You don't have to go from feeling to fucked. You don't have to have a feeling and being, that's it, right? End of the world. It's like, okay, so for me, like I get it. I wake up anxious every single morning. Like that's because I woke up in an environment every single morning in my childhood that was anxiety inducing. So what's in my control? Okay, I'm not going to have my phone by my bed, right? I'm going to meditate. I'm going to go for a walk in the morning, right? Those are things that I can control about my anxiety. Then I'm going to get curious of, okay, so this is manifesting in the same part of my stomach. Okay, well, so what's the narrative I've created? Well, I'm going to lose everything, right? Enter narrative here. Okay, so then I can stop and objectively look and say, okay, so what was the trigger that caused this? I don't know, I just woke up and actually when I was a kid waking up every day, that wasn't safe. So this is where I'm like, okay, so there's no actual danger. Is there a real, or okay, can I challenge this? I'm going to lose everything. Okay, what does that mean? Like what facts do I have to back up? Oh, I guess I don't have any, right? Yeah, well, there's really nothing going on. That way it's not about discrediting ourselves. It's about validating, hey, oh yeah, that's totally valid that I would be anxious because of this. That's true. I have a big night tonight. Okay, so I'm a human.
Right. Oh my gosh. Are we human?
Right?
Yeah,
Weird.
right.
And it's just really learning and understanding, like I can validate myself. I can sit with it. I'm not scared of feeling an emotion. And when we have high anxiety, it's a lot of fear, right? What's the core emotion? Fear, right? We have like 4 main emotions. There are 4 to 7, depending on who you talk to. Joy, fear, sadness, anger.
Oh wait, isn't that like the
inside out?
Yeah,
exactly. So that's IFS is internal family systems. That's part work. What you've been describing, like a part of me feels this. Yeah, because there's 37 different versions of you and then some, right? So like I might feel like yesterday I got a shitty review on the podcast. And it was just, somebody very personal projecting onto me their shit. And I was like, oh, and I stopped and I was like, whoa, okay, so I'm feeling this. And I was like, oh, this just really hit that core belief that there's something wrong with me. Okay, that's totally valid. This is super hurtful, but that doesn't mean that their lived experience is mine. And I'm allowed to hold space that they're allowed to think that. And I don't need to make this about me.
Well, and also you cannot please everyone in the world.
Every time I think you're not, and I'm like, pizza doesn't please everybody, right? There's nothing on this planet that pleases everybody.
No. And now you are, let's come full circle. You are in a beautiful relationship. Your sister went ring shopping yesterday. And I want to point this out there because you guys met on a dating app.
We met on Hinge. My partner's significantly more avoidant. I had my anxiety, but you notice how I don't say he is an avoidant and no, I don't self-identify.
Yeah.
We can change. You can heal. When we met, we had a lot of stuff that we were working through, but the reason we did is because we were a team of 2 people going, no matter what, I want to make this work within our power and saying, no, I'm going to keep showing up for you. And so when we started to see a divide, my partner stepped up and said, I need to go to therapy. And then same with me. I said, we saw a divide after he was going, I said, I need to go to find a new therapist. We are both incredibly committed to showing up for each other until one or both of us agree that it's no longer sustainable to do so. Mm-hmm. And this is the first healthy relationship I've ever been in. I have never felt more seen, heard, and understood. We have our issue, even on the drive over, we had a big talk and it's like, but we have these big talks so that I know, hey, there's no more resentment. And we'll even start that. To avoid resentment, can I share something with you? And I know, like, put your fucking phone down and turn to him, listen.
Yeah.
Allow him to talk. And what that did was it healed a lot of those parts for me that never believed I could be loved.
Oh my God, I love that so much. So what is your advice to people? How on dating apps, how can they use dating apps in a healthy way? Because we know it's a big pond out there.
Be a better buyer. Be a better buyer. I cannot tell you how many, for a couple of things. One, learn how to make a profile. Like my partner and I, we do profile audits because we get some and then I'm like, people think, oh my God, like my profile is great. And I'm like, oh no. Because usually I'll ask them like, what do you keep getting? Like one of my clients, she kept saying, I keep getting these fuck boys. I keep getting these guys. And I was like, okay, send me your profile. And she thought shit. And I was like, first of all, every photo is tits out, bathing suit. I can't really see your face because you're hidden. Your prompts didn't say anything. It was just like the way to win me over, sushi. And you're like, like the point of a prompt is to prompt a conversation. So what are we doing here? And so then we improved her profile and she even told me she was like instantly getting different results. And then I said, okay, now you need to be a better buyer. Okay, look at their profile. And I'm like, first thing, tell me 3 things that you remember. That's what my partner does to me. Every time we'll do an audit, we read the profile and he'll cover the screen and go, okay, tell me 3 things you remember about this person. And I'm like, they like to fish because they had 3 fishing photos. And I'm like, oh, that's like, there's nothing of depth.
Right.
So as the buyer, for instance, like when I first met my partner, I had like 10 different, because I was new in town, right? So when you're new, you get all the influx of people being like, ooh, who's this? And
I was like, new in town too. My husband's like, I snatched you because.
Same with Ryan. He's like, I got you right before I'd even moved there.
Right.
And okay, cool. I was ready for the taking. But when I was looking at all these different profiles, and the reason I dated him was I was like, he put depth. He answered these questions. He had really great photos. The conversation was really strong. I can't tell you how many times, like even on Threads, like I've been just like kind of looking on Threads recently, and I'll get these people like, I just don't understand dating. Why would you talk to me? Why would you then you don't answer? It's like, yo, why are you putting so much fucking importance on somebody that could not even be real? Right? We don't even know. I don't know who these people are. I don't know where you are. So use dating apps in a way that makes you feel safe, right? Turn notifications off, get a Google number so you don't have to give your real phone number out. Go on, do a vibe check, have a FaceTime if you're not sure. Do something small like a hike or a walk. It doesn't need to be this grandiose dinner for the first date. Yeah. See this person, no bells and whistles. Allow yourself to know that dating, because I get it every day of like, I hate dating apps. I hate dating apps. Cool. Do things that make you uncomfortable. Stop looking for comfort. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Going out and meeting people isn't necessarily easier. You're going to get rejected in your face. You're going to have somebody going, I don't know if they're married. I don't know if they're single. I don't know if they're gay, straight. I don't know are they into me? It's not easier to meet somebody out in public. It's just different. So knowing that it's not the enemy, there are going to be a lot of really, really crappy people on dating apps. Welcome to the world, baby.
Yeah.
Be a better buyer.
Be a better buyer. And I think when the overwhelm becomes too overwhelming for someone, I think we need to like point out there that you can take a step back for yourself, you know? Ugh. So how can individuals realize that they may need to take a step back to focus or like regain that energy for their own personal growth before they jump back into the dating world?
When everything is revolving around that, right? Like when you're like, I haven't heard from this person. When you start to become hyper vigilant, when you start to realize, like, I get people that'll write in being like, I can't sleep, I can't eat. And it's like, you never met this person, right? Like you are projecting onto them. You don't know them. That's when we have to say, yo, I think it's time to take a step back, right? Take a break. You're feeling burnt out? Get off the apps, right? Delete them, get them back in a month or 2, right? Really what I would say is put boundaries around it. If you're noticing, whoa, I'm getting this dopamine hit every time I see their name. I remember when they would be like, you have a new match, blah, 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 messaged you. You can't wait because you're already creating castles in the sky. What if this is my person? What if they're the one? Oh my God, they're so attractive. I could go to Iceland with them. They just went on this trip. I could do it with them. Start to notice, whoa, I'm overconflating, right? Self-awareness.
Right.
And if we're looking at everything as, well, I want to be chosen and I don't know that you're ready for a relationship then. And that's okay. There's no shame in acknowledging and saying, maybe I just need to sit with myself for a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Truly. I love it. You're such a bright light. You make me laugh so hard. And what I love about you is you are the girl that's like the girlfriend to probably me that I always needed to say like, okay, go dump his ass if it's not working, you know? But people are so much like, oh, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But we need to hear that. We need to hear this raw honesty. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. I have a couple of last rapid fire questions. They're not hard, I promise. What is your everyday non-negotiable?
Movement. Movement and sunshine. I don't care if I'm literally 6 feet under is the only time I'm not going to have it. I have to move my body in some way, whether that be a walk, whether that be yoga, whether that be a movement. It saved my life.
Oh yeah. I agree. 100% sunshine. Unfortunately, in Santa Barbara, we get a lot of fog sometimes. And I'm like, help me. I think maybe this winter I might have to like invest in like a sun lamp or something. I don't know.
I had one in New York.
Oh gosh, send me your brand. And then what is one easy toxic-free habit we can all start doing today?
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh God, I have so many that I'm like, no, brain, just pick one.
The first one.
The first one is started just acknowledging what's going on in your body. There's no other way I could say it, is just understand yourself, right? Like for me, which we'll talk about offline, doing a mold detox, I was tired of every doctor telling me that I was okay when I wasn't, right? I was tired of going out and being like, hey, I don't enjoy this situation. Listen to your body and it will change everything.
Yep, 100% sister. Where can everyone follow you, connect with you? I know you're on everything out there.
Gotta be, right? I gotta pimp myself out. Sabrina Zohar on TikTok and Instagram. The Sabrina Zohar Show is the podcast. If you want to go more, there's like tons of therapists and stuff that come on. So we really get into like the weeds of dating and relationships and healing and all that stuff. And yeah, SabrinaZohar.com, you can find me. I'm so stoked. Thank you so much for having me and having a conversation that is just robust and different.
Of course, come back anytime.
Thanks, man.
Here we are. We're jumping straight into hot habits, one of my favorite parts of the show, and something that I've been implementing into my life most recently is air purifying houseplants. So as you all may have known by listening to my journey, I've been dealing with some environmental issues like mold illness. And by having air purifying plants in the home, it helps remove toxins in the air, right? You can do all the remediation, all the things, but having all those essential items puts you back out into nature. It suppresses dust particles and lowers the risk of those respiratory illnesses, expediting further health issues. Let's jump into our trendy trends now. Empowered consumers. You may be thinking, what, KB, are you talking about? But yeah, a trendy trend right now is empowered consumerism, all right? Being that empowered consumer out there. So apps like, and companies like Yuka and Scandit are actually empowering consumers like myself by giving them easy access to information, including ingredient lists and also the associated health risks that are combined with those items. So recently I used the Yuka app, and I promise you this is not a sponsor, although, hello, I would love to be contacted by you guys. And my husband and I were out of town and I was like, oh, shoot, snap, I forgot my cleanser. So we went to a natural food store that I found and I was like, all right, scan in the shelf. And I grabbed one. I'm like, this looks nice. And I looked at the label and I was like, you know what? I've got the Yuka app. So I scanned that bad boy. All I had to do was take a picture of the label and it said, is this a rating? Is it good? Is it not good? These are the ingredients. This is what it does for you. Voila, I bought it. So thank you to that. I hope you guys incorporate some of those fun little items into your life and let me know what are your current hot habits that are helping your health and wellness and longevity. And what are some trendy trends we should be, experimenting with? Thanks for tuning in. As always, I truly appreciate you guys. And remember, you're doing your best and your best is great. See you next time. Thanks for watching Toxic Free with KB. Please subscribe to the show, comment below, and check us out on Instagram at toxicfree.kb and TikTok at toxicfreewithkb. See you next time. This is a Kilo Bravo Media production brought to you by Rainbow Creative.